Hello everyone, this is Solaris290, and I'm here today to give you my thoughts on Kingdom Chapter 560, entitled Shin's Space. But in any case, the cover page of Shin is a rather interesting one. We've never seen Shin like this. He's in a sort of, Zen-esque state. His eyes are shut, and it actually looks rather intimidating, almost alien to Shin. I mean, it almost reminds you of Rinko, but the cover page certainly sets the tone to come, at least for Shin's part of the chapter. The chapter can be pretty simply divided into two parts, fairly neatly. First half we have the Gyoku Hou unit, with Orhon and Akou, who are effectively having to fight off both Benanji and Gyoron in order to save Akou. And then the second half of the chapter focuses on the Hishin unit, from Ten's perspective, and then finally on to Shin, who finally faces off in the long, fated duel against Gakuei. So starting off, Akou managed to make his amazing assist, his unbelievable save of Akou at a hair's breadth. And while Akou and the Gyoku Hou are desperately doing all they can to get Akou to safety, Akou is still fairly wry about the whole situation. He's still able to crack jokes even then, even while they still have two horrendously powerful Zhao generals tailing them. And the Gyoku Hou men don't even have the chance to finish their sentences about how they have to get away from Benanji and Gyoron, as ultimately otherwise, if they catch up, the sacrifice of Akou will be for naught, and they're dead. Yep, and Benanji in particular is pretty incensed about this. He doesn't think that Akou can run away that easily, given that he just stole his kill after all. But thankfully, Orhon and the Gyoku Hou kept up their promise to save Akou, and while Akou is pleased to see him, Banyor cautions Orhon against blindly rushing in to face off against both Benanji and Gyoron. But surprisingly, Orhon here is pretty calm despite the situation. He uses his powerful Liu Saw, or Nest of Dragons technique, which is actually powerful enough to not only counter Gyoron, but even nearly knock him off his horse. And to add to that, he's able to parry a block from Benanji, who's in his own White Eyes mode at this point, so well done for that, Orhon. But despite all of this, Orhon makes the point that the priority here, above all else, is whether Akou is still alive or not. Ultimately, otherwise, all this will have been for naught, and Akou is able to somewhat reassure him that while Akou is at death's door, he's just barely clinging on. And thus, Orhon concludes, all that's left is to get him out of here, which will of course be easier said than done, that is, for the Zhao. As Akou notes, the enemy will soon find their own path being severed. The reason for that is that in the midst of all of this, the Akou soldiers are still managing to formulate their own amount of strategy. Soldiers from the Akou army are heading from the right, and Orhon explains that they're not just here solely to help Orhon, Akou, and Akou escape. They're also there to effectively pincer Benanji and Gyoron in one fell swoop. After all, Benanji and Gyoron, having chased after Akou and effectively cornered him, meant that they overextended themselves from the rest of their men. Thus, this retreat offers them a chance to effectively lure Benanji and Gyoron on, and thus cut off their own path of escape, and then take their heads. Banyor's pretty surprised that they can even try to formulate this stratagem of the severed path at a time like this. And Akou notes that if they're not complete idiots, then they'll realise that it's best to back off. And Orhon considers pragmatically that ultimately it's not about killing them. At this point they just have to drive them off and save Akou above all else. But Akou notes that ultimately the Gyoku Hou will be the ones to make the sacrifices and bear the brunt of Benanji and Gyoron's onslaught and anger until the reinforcements arrive. But Orhon, even here, is still displaying that character development from last chapter. He takes the time to tell Banyor to send a message to Kanyor and his unit that were left behind, that ultimately the Akou army is about to commence their large-scale withdrawal, and that he and the Hishin unit need to retreat together. And on that note, we segue to the Hishin unit, and we have Ten, who, not surprisingly, still has a rather stressed and concerned face on. Though to be fair to Ten, I mean, bless her, she's had so much to deal with, what with Gyorn's mastery of both tactics and instincts, which put her on the back foot here, and of course the incoming rage of Gakuei. The Hishin unit are able to see in the distance that most of Akou's army has begun to fall back, and the Gyoku Hou is leading them. While they're not sure whether General Akou has been slain or not, Ten notes that this is the signal for all of them to retreat, Hishin unit included, as well as Gyokai, who is then launching an attack from the right. But in any case, Ten notes that the left flank has to keep the guard up as well, since once the Akou army is gone, Hishin unit themselves will be isolated with the 3 Zhao armies heading for them. Of course, Sosui and the others are attempting to notify Shin, but Ten notes that Shin can't be disturbed at this crucial moment, as ultimately he has to take out Gakuei today, right here, right now. Ultimately, this is the route to victory for the right wing of the Jin army. Ultimately, that convoluted stratagem that Orhon had come up with, if Shin doesn't slay Gakuei here, then that leaves them with even less hope of tipping the battle in their favour. And in any case, they don't have much time, since part of the Zhao forces who were chasing the Akou army are now heading straight towards the Hishin unit. And Ten really can only pray and hope that Shin knows what he's doing, since they're very short on time and the pursuers are closing in. And we get this nice page of just no dialogue, purely just Shin and his Hishin unit surrounding them, Gakuei and his personal troops surrounding him, and they're facing off against each other. And somewhat oddly, we get a flashback of Gakuei's past. And of course, from lots of other manga, you pretty much already know that if we're getting a fairly extensive look into Gakuei's past, this is likely because he needs to be fleshed out, because, well, he's going to be gone in the next couple of pages. But in any case, we have Gakuei here noting how Keisha-sama was such a peculiar man. Ultimately, he was determined to be praised by Keisha above all else. Just those 2 words of good work made him feel like everything was worth it, no matter how much he had to brutally fight various enemy armies, bearing wound after wound and brunt of the attacks of troops and blood, and everything else. All of it was worth it, just for Keisha's praise. Ultimately, Gakuei sees himself as rather a lone wolf in the army. He had no real ties. He had no one he could really get along with, and ultimately Keisha was the first man whom Gakuei truly felt he could swear his loyalty towards. Of course, we saw that back at the end of the Kokyo arc. Gakuei was, of course, enraged, furious, apoplectic when Keisha had been slain by Shin, and more so when Kisui covered it up. He was even willing to virtually kill Kisui right there and then. It was only Keisha's other vassal who virtually had to tell him that, threaten him, if you're going to actually thinking about committing mutiny, you have to actually take a good, long, hard look at yourself and think about what sort of state you're in, that you're genuinely willing to commit mutiny against your own commander-in-chief. At that time when their previous commander-in-chief, Keisha himself, had just been slain. He told Gakuei, as Gakuei was told, if you're thinking like this, and it's best you just go back to being a foot soldier, you can't have that sort of mindset, fueled purely by revenge. But of course, Gakuei was just about able to be stayed and stopped at that time. But right here and now, he's facing off against Shin, both their personal units. He has no such inhibitions and qualms here. You can see the veins in his eyes and on his hands. He gets ready, noting at this point he's going to avenge his master. And the Hishin unit and Gakuei's men notice that a path has, whether naturally or not, opened up between them. And at that moment, Gakuei takes the time to jump in and slay Shin right there and then. And Shin's unit's pretty concerned, because Shin's still in that state from last chapter, where he's suspended on his horse. He's looking at the ground, eyes closed, heavily breathing. No one really understands what he's about to do. And as Gakuei gets his spear in hand, ready to stab Shin, and there we have it, the flash of Ouki and his own swift strike. Shin opens his eyes, and with that, a clean frontal slice straight down. And Gakuei is done for this world. His expression at the end is rather, well, it's quite content, but also rather grim. Shin's finally got the job done, as Gakuei has his rather wide open eyes, blood from the mouth, as his body spurts blood from around him. And that's that. Gakuei is gone. And really, Gakuei was never that much of an important character. I mean, alright, he was Kesha's vassal, but really his whole arc, if you can even call it an arc, was literally devoting his character solely to revenge for Kesha. We didn't even get a proper backstory until now. Really he was just there as a stepping stone for Shin to kill, to really show how much Shin has grown and advanced as a general. But hey, there's nothing wrong to have characters like that. Ultimately, it's worth it just to see Shin finally pull out his strongest attack yet. His newest ability, as it were. All the fruits of that training have finally paid off. That seems that it is instinctual traits as a general in action here. Of course, he has the ancillaries of Ten as a strategist, but this victory was all down to Shin's own strength, his skill, training as a general, a martial, instinctual type general. Man, this was just an enjoyable chapter. If only just to have Gakuei finally get out of the way. All of his revenge monologue was getting a bit annoying, to be personally honest with you. As for next chapter, well, we'll obviously get the aftermath of the Gakuei unit. They'll likely be fleeing. Hopefully we do still focus back on Orhon and what's happening with Akou. If he is alive, or important to see how he fares from this point on. And that was a chapter. A rather short chapter, but an enjoyable one nonetheless. Give me your thoughts if you have any. This is Slavis290, signing out.